Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Cool, perfect. Right, hello and welcome to Series 1, Episode 1 of Mind Cafe's very first podcast. It's going to be a podcast in search of truth and solutions for a more mindful, everyday peace of mind. My name's Alex Leo, and today we're joined by our founder.
I'm AJ.
AJ, how are you, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. It's nice to be here in your lovely flat.
Yeah,
all the way in
it's a
Clapham.
little bit warm, but it's nice.
It's good. It's a nice spring morning
I
here.
had to close the windows because it's so noisy and it's sweltering.
How you finding living in good old Clapham?
Good, man. It's nice. Yeah, lots of young people around. Obviously in lockdown at the moment, so it's not quite the same. But
yeah, it's going to be like, and obviously with the winter being in, it's been tough, like not being able to get into the
dark nights don't help. But it's getting springy, so it's nice. We're getting there.
Man. Nice.
It's a cool city. I like it.
When did you move down?
About a month ago now, so not long. The whole month has been spent in lockdown, so
Yeah.
it's been interesting. But a month. It's gone fast.
We were just talking before we came on about the addiction to Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, and those horrible algos.
Yeah.
Did you find when you first moved in that like it was just any excuse to get on Marketplace to see what?
To be fair, I still look now and I keep inquiring about things that I have no intention of buying. I'm being like, is this still available? And I'm thinking in my head, I'm definitely not going to buy this random plant pot, whatever it might be.
It's weirdly addictive. Like I find myself lying in bed just like before I drift off, and I'm just like, look on Marketplace. You know, I'm between flats myself at the moment, so I'm not even like looking for furniture, but I just find myself like, oh, that's a nice little bed nightstand or whatever. Like,
yeah, like the most pointless things.
I'm never gonna need
That's it, man. Like, there's so much on there, so many weird things as well.
And also, you were telling me before you had some weird lockdown dream about the barbers. What was all that about?
Oh yeah. So I had a dream where I went to a secret barber in Brixton, and it was all taped up, and I snuck in, and halfway through my haircut, the police barged in and arrested everyone, but I managed to get away. And so I ran away. I went into hiding for a couple of months and got away with it. Obviously, it wasn't real, but it felt very real.
Was that the excuse you used for cutting your own hair for the last 2 months, yeah?
Yeah, I've been doing the DIY skin fades. They're pretty bad.
It's been all right, man,
Yeah, I think you get the hang of it, to be fair, but it's like trying to hold a mirror behind your head while seeing what you're doing, trying not to mess it up,
With my long locks, I've got an excuse. I just don't do anything. Just go
let them grow.
Full feral.
It suits you though, man. Like, I couldn't do the long hair.
It's all right for a bit, but some days you just wish you were just like...
Yeah, it's a good feeling when you get a haircut as well, man. You come out the barber shop feeling like a king. I miss that.
Definitely. Well, listen, mate, I think it's going to be an important conversation today because obviously Mind Cafe has been doing some really important things globally, I would say, at this point now, as a magazine and inspiring lots of people to take a more mindful approach. And I think it's important for a lot of people out there that are just finding out about Mind Cafe and what the brand sort of stands for. I think it'd be good for them to kind of get a bit of insight into, how it all came to be really, and how you first sort of sprung on this idea of starting Mind Cafe and what the inspiration was behind it really.
Yeah.
So I'd love to find out a bit more.
Well, the thing is, it was never even meant to be a business. Like, I literally set this up in my bedroom when I was maybe 18, a few years ago now. I'm quite young. Most people don't know that. I try and hide it. But yeah, when I was 18. And I've always been interested in writing and self-improvement. And I find that that's always helped me. Like, I think, let's go with the full story. So like, when I was younger, I had a lot of insecurities, and I think everyone does. It's silly to say that when I was 14 years old, I wasn't the kind of person I wanted to be, because I just think it's cool being 14 years old. No one is. But I felt that a lot. And I always wanted to be, not someone else, but like improve myself, improve my levels of confidence, for example, or reduce my levels of anxiety and that kind of thing. And so I was always on that kind of path. And I'd always written stories like for myself, I used to write like war stories every night when I was a kid. And I don't know how it came about. I mean, I guess it was kind of a marriage of those two passions of mine, with writing and self-improvement. And I'd ran like a few blogs and stuff before Mind Cafe came about that were awful, like really terrible blogs. I had a travel blog at one point and I'd been to about 3 countries. I was like, I could definitely do this.
Yeah.
Obviously that failed. But yeah, I kind of set it up. It was a hard time for me. Like at the time, my girlfriend of maybe 6 years at the time. So I'd been with her since I was 13. She was diagnosed with brain cancer out of nowhere. And so obviously that, brought up all of these insecurities that I previously had, and everything came to the surface again. And for me, it was a case of, like, I guess I sort of drew upon self-improvement again to overcome that hurdle, right?
Yeah.
And so I was reading a lot of books about, I remember reading all kinds of things, like even people like Rio Ferdinand, who, interesting story, but he lost his wife, I think it was cancer, maybe.
Yeah.
I was reading all these different stories about people that have been through struggle. There's another one called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you've read that or not.
No, I haven't read that one.
So it's the guy was in a concentration camp in, like a Second World War, right?
Yeah.
It's not the second. Second first?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, I always doubt myself with history, but in a concentration camp. And it's about his struggle and how he, I guess found meaning within that. And so I was reading all of this stuff and I was like, this is really helping me, like philosophy, stoicism, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, I was still trying to find my feet as a writer. And then I thought, I'm learning all of this stuff about self-improvement, so maybe I can share those stories with other people. And sat around for a few weeks thinking, like, how can I go about it? And I'd also seen a few magazines around as well and thought I'd love to do that at some point. And then I guess, like, I don't know. I think I was driving to Starbucks one day and I was thinking about different names in my head, like, I love cafes and I love, like, mindfulness and da-da-da. I'm like, Mind Cafe. Yeah, that works. And then, like I said, just set it up in my bedroom as a hobby. Like, it was something that I enjoyed doing. It wasn't supposed to be a business.
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another, and we went from having like 50,000 readers a month to 2.5 million in the space of 6 months. Then we got a partnership with Medium. And now it's, we're still a small team. There are only 7 of us, as you know.
Yeah.
But it's just gone to this crazy, crazy level. But yeah, like I said, I never expected any of it, which makes it all the more special.
It's just an incredibly organic kind of process that you've gone through, really. And obviously we're both from a small town of Bromsgrove, big up Bromsgrove. And for such a small little place, like, on the edges of Birmingham and Worcester, there's a lot of talented people in that town, I find. A lot of people are doing cool things
100%, man. 100%.
That have come through. And
Ben Francis, owner of Gymshark, from Bromsgrove.
Exactly.
So many people.
I don't know what it is. It must be something in the water, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I think it's like, it's got that real small town vibe. So maybe people are
whatever it is, I haven't drank that potion yet. I need to find out what it is.
You underestimate yourself, man. Alex is a very talented musician.
But, thanks, man. I wasn't fishing for the compliment there, but I appreciate
you got it.
But yeah, man, it's just been an amazing journey for you over the last few years. Obviously with, like you mentioned, with the loss of Charlotte and stuff, that must have been such a heavy blow at a young age to take on board, really. And I just think it's really inspiring how through that struggle at such a young age as well, because I think people need to know, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21.
Yeah.
See what I mean? It's really hard. First time we met, I couldn't believe you were only 21. So it's hats off to your character, really, just for how mature you are for your age. And I think obviously going through an experience like that at such a young age obviously puts some miles on the clock, doesn't it, in terms of like having to grow up, really.
That's what I was going to say. It forces you to grow up because suddenly you're in this very adult world where everything's very serious and there are all of these big decisions being made. And I was only, I think, 18 at the time. And yeah, like you can't be a kid in that environment. No. And so I think as difficult as it was a very powerful learning experience, And I don't think I'd be where, I don't know, like Mind Cafe wouldn't exist without that. So out of something very difficult came something quite positive, which is good. And I think, I don't want to preach, but I think when you're going through a hard time, there often is an element of, can you flip this on its head and make it positive? And I think that's very hard to think about when you're in the throes of such a difficult situation. But there's so much emotion there that channeling that emotion towards something productive, I think that's where a lot of the best ideas come from.
100%.
Some of the best songs in history, for example, come from really dark places. And so I guess that's kind of how I try to see it.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Some of the best artists, some of the best musicians and stuff, when you read into their backstories, it always tends to come from a place of pain or...
100%, man. 100%.
So, but yeah, I mean, you've gone on to create this brand, and I've always been interested when you first came up with the idea. Was the magazine world something you always wanted to step into from the get-go, or was it, was that the angle you always wanted to take with the... Yeah,
I don't know when the magazine came about. That is an idea. But I don't know when in terms of time frame, but I know the moment I thought about it was when I was in St. Ives with Charlotte and her family. And I was in the shop for some reason, maybe getting like a birthday card for her mum or something. I can't remember. I don't know when it was. And I saw this surf magazine in this little corner shop, and I picked it up, and it was very minimalistic, very cool. And I looked at it and I just thought, so many people have worked to produce this tangible physical product which carries so much value to certain people, or rather provides so much value to certain people. And I loved that. Like, the digital world is cool and there's a lot of value there, but we're on our screen 24/7. And I just thought the idea of having a print magazine in today's world was such a good one.
Yeah.
And I guess that's when the idea dawned. And I think, you know, through a weird sort of process of events, I guess, or sequence of events, I then thought, well, if I'm going to launch a magazine, I need an audience, and da-da-da-da. And then obviously Mind Cafe came about. But we did the first year or two as a company before even going near the magazine. And I got so swept up in everything else that I completely forgot about the magazine. And then in September last year, it was like, oh, yeah, that's why I started this. And then we launched it. So it was always kind of there in the background, but got put on the back burner a little bit.
So when you say other stuff, you know, with the brand when it got swept up there, I mean, obviously, I was only made aware of the service, the app Medium, when we did that shoot together for Edition 2. Right. Was it Edition 2?
Yeah.
And your friend John introduced me just during the shoot. He just said, you know, we started talking about Medium, and you were all sort of chatting about Medium a lot. And I kind of felt like an outsider, like, what is this app? You know, because as much as I try not to be an addict to social media and stuff, like, we're all guilty of it. It's just
100%.
The algos are just too good.
They are,
we're just all stuck
keep
to it.
pulling you back.
So, you know, for a long time I was looking for an excuse. I was looking for something to sort of channel that time I would spend scrolling, like to actually scroll onto something that's going to benefit me long term.
Yeah.
You know, actually help build my IQ, if that's at all possible. And when you're all chatting about Medium, I was like, this sounds really cool. And obviously that's where Mind Cafe sort of first sprung to notoriety. And I just, how did that come about? And could you tell us a little bit more about what Medium is as a service? And if people are listening in, like what, you know, where they can find you and
I always describe Medium as being a bit like YouTube, but for writers.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of, I don't know, I get people write articles on Medium, and then when you sign up, you choose your interests, and then like whatever I'm not explaining this too well. Maybe we'll cut that bit and I'll start again. But
that's so good.
Like on the app, you choose your interests, and then it will present you with articles every day that match those interests, right? And they have this really clever curation system where they have a whole team of people that every day will sit and read every article on Medium and pick the best ones and make sure that you see them as a reader.
Right.
So for that reason, like you know that when you go onto Medium, you're going to find quality content. And that's what I liked about it. And as a reader in the beginning, it was like, yeah, this is cool. In the same way as you, like I'm actually learning from my phone.
Yeah.
Rather than watching people's Instagram stories of them eating avocado on toast. You know?
Yeah.
And
for as fun as that is, like.
Yeah, I still post those kind of stories as well. But, you know, so it was much more productive. And then I discovered they had this feature where you could create a publication. I'm like, publication? What the hell's that? And I think in a world in which a lot of people choose to establish blogs on websites of their own, the advantage of launching a publication on Medium is that you then tap into their audience of millions of people every month rather than having to drive everybody somewhere else. So that's what kind of sold me. And also it's a very easy to use interface. Like it's a very nice app, as you know.
Yeah.
My voice just cracked there, but
That's
we'll
all right,
ignore that. So yeah, and then we did the publication on Medium for about a year. And then out of nowhere, weirdly actually, it was weird timing. The week that Charlotte passed away, Medium approached me and asked if they could partner with me as an editor, I guess, and essentially support us as a publication and help us grow.
Wow.
And then the year following that, we just exploded, like I said, to 2.5 million readers and all that.
Can you remember what the first article was that you submitted?
Well, it was interesting, man. When I first started Medium, I was working at the co-op as a cashier for a little bit. And so I was using my wages to pay people I knew to write articles. And it was like 20 quid an article. I couldn't afford much at all. So a lot of them were me because obviously I didn't have to pay myself. But yeah, I was paying like my old high school teachers to write and all kinds of random people as well that were far more qualified than me. And even now, pretty much everyone I work with is far more qualified than me. So you do get this kind of imposter syndrome. But especially then it was like, I'm 18 years old and I'm asking my old RS teacher to write for my publication and I'll pay him. And it was just sort of like, this is odd, man. Like, what am I doing? So the first article would probably have been one of my own, but they were.
Do you remember the title or no?
Nah, I used to write about mindfulness a lot, so maybe like A Beginner's Guide to Mindfulness. I think I've recycled that title 100 times.
Yeah.
Something like that, I'd imagine.
No, it's really good, man. Like I say, it's become, over the last few years, I've noticed just how popular the whole like self-help cult, if you will, has become, because it has become like a cult in certain aspects. This whole like self-help guidance thing, and for a long time, up until really recently, I'd say even until we did that shoot together, actually, I've always been very skeptical, actually, around that whole industry, because it is an industry now.
100%.
And, you know, for me, whenever I've dipped my toe into it before, you know, you see all these different self-help books and The Secret and this, that and the other, and like, it just feels like a lot of the time it comes from this sort of virtue signally kind of righteous place of, we've got all the answers. All it's going to cost you is 500 quid.
Right.
Come on this course and you'll be like the Zen master like for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
and,
I hate that as well, man.
So I've been like, it's kind of like secretly sort of anti all of that for a long time, just because I just think it's not actually giving anything back.
Yeah.
Until I stumbled upon what you were doing in Mind Cafe, and like that's what I like it so much, is because you are still such a young bloke kind of stepping out into the world and sort of finding your feet yourself.
Yeah.
I think you're quite transparent with that approach. And it's not coming from a preachy place, like you kind of self-help, self-improvement rather. It's sort of coming from within. You know, it feels to me like you're kind of on the journey with the readers as well, which I think is an important thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what makes us a bit different as well. Because in this is a competitive space. Like, as you said, it's an industry. And so many people are interested in it. So many people are also producing content about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, there was a big gap in the market. And now it's wedged full. Like, everyone's in that space.
Yeah.
And so setting up a self-improvement publication, most people would have said to me that was an awful idea. But I think what makes us different is exactly that. Like, you do, and I don't disrespect anybody that does this, but people are very salesy. You know, it's like, these 5 tips will change your life. Pay me this amount of money and I'll change your life.
Exactly,
blah, blah, blah. And I think my approach with everything I've done has never been salesy. I mean, I hate salesy stuff. Even with this coaching business I'm launching at the moment, where I'm tutoring people to write better. Like, so many people have said to me, oh, make sure you get your sales technique down. Like, sell them on the free call with this and say that. And I'm like, I even say to the people on the calls, I'm like, look, I'm not going to try and sell you anything.
Yeah.
Like, here's some value. If you like it and you want more, you can pay for more. If not, fine, carry on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same approach with Mind Cafe. Like, where our focus is providing value. And yeah, the revenue is important because it supports a team. And without the money, we don't have that driving force to actually push things forward. You know, we don't have the freedom to do what we want as well. But I think what makes us different is exactly what you've just said. Like, cutting past the noise, cutting past all the bullshit. Can we swear? I'm going to swear. Cutting past all the bullshit and just, you know.
We're being transparent after all.
Exactly. And that's exactly my point, is it's transparent.
Yeah.
You know, it's honest. Relaxed, inspiring essays about happiness has always been our tagline. I think the word honest should also be put in there.
Definitely. So since you started this journey of mindfulness and you've sort of started a brand based all around it, what would you say, personally, what have you learned anything since launching it as a reader yourself? Have you learned anything? What's the most valuable lesson do you think you've learned from your own brand since you started it?
That's interesting. There's so much, to be fair. It's taught me a lot of different lessons, more from the perspective of being a business owner. And I think it's because I think people have this illusion of others that own companies or direct companies, and they just assume that they have it all figured out. Like, they must know what they're doing. They probably have a weekly plan and a daily agenda and whatever. And you know, they have this, like, I don't know, like, facade of having their shit together. Yeah. And what I've realized is that nobody really knows what's going on. Like, everything's a guessing game. Every day it's like there's a new problem or challenge or opportunity, and you make the decision on that day. Like, there's no plan. And so one thing it's taught me is that it's like, don't look at other people in other positions and think that they have it all figured out, because they probably don't.
Definitely.
It's like that. Got stuff going on.
Like that thing when you're a kid, isn't it? When you're little, you think your parents are like the answers to all.
Exactly, bro. Like these
You know,
all-knowing oracles.
all
man.
knowing, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you get to a certain age where you suddenly realise it all starts to click in, and you realise that actually they're just winging it as well.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
And
Everyone's winging it.
and then there's like a scary phase when you get to like your early 20s when you suddenly realise that actually pretty much everyone you meet is just sort of fumbling through life. Do you know what I
Yourself
mean?
included.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, 100%.
And that's the scary part.
It's scary, but it's also reassuring to realise that you're not the fuck up, really. Like, you're, do you know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, and that, I guess that's a positive to take away from it, as daunting as that might be.
100%. So
But,
yeah, that's been a valuable lesson. I think also it's made me a lot better at dealing with people, particularly confrontation. And, you know, if certain people, which is very rare actually, but if people in the team, for example, could be doing something better, it's taught me how to approach that in a positive and collaborative way.
Yeah.
And it's also made me more frustrated at leaders that do the opposite and are very critical and aggressive. Like, I hate that. If you're on a team with people, even if whether you own the team or not, like, you're on the same side.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't oppose your teammates. Like, help them achieve a common goal. Don't be saying you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
And here's how to do it right, because you're not friends in that position. Do you know what I mean?
And I guess you had to learn that quite quickly, sort of starting the company and bringing people in and not really having, you know, you didn't come from business school necessarily where you've kind of had that corporate training of how to deal with the ladder of having people working with you and having to work collaboratively.
Yeah, exactly. Winging it, like we said.
Yeah, exactly. Just winging it through. I feel like we should give a bit of a shout out to the team. So who was the first?
100%.
So who was the first person you brought on, and what was their role after you come up with the brand?
Yeah. So the first member of the team was a guy called Reed Rawlings, who isn't with us anymore. But he used to write for us on Mind Cafe. One day approached me and was like, "Hey, Medium are looking for partners. I'm happy to edit for you for free, and then maybe we could apply for the partnership. And you know, if they accept us, then we could talk about money. But right now, like, I believe in your company. Like, I'll just put in the time." So I owe a lot to Reed, and Reed was great. Like, very passionate, very driven, and really helped get Mind Cafe to where it was before we launched our other projects. So on Medium, Reed was fantastic, and also very, very helpful, because during that time, obviously Charlotte was going through cancer and everything else. So without Reed, I probably would have given up on Mind Cafe just because of how difficult everything else was. But it was Reed that was always on my shoulder saying, "Hey, look, like, let's keep going. Like, this has potential. Let's keep going. Like, I know it's tough, but let's keep going." And so Reed was the first team member. And then we've had various people. I mean, a good friend of mine, Callum Shaw, did a lot of photography back in the day.
Good old Cal.
Yeah, good old Cal. And then Cal as well has moved on to other things, which is great. Same with Reed. So after a while, Reed decided to, you know, pursue other career paths, which is good. And then I think the second employee was probably Jordan, who is now my editor on Medium. So he does pretty much everything over there, and he's amazing at what he does. Again, super driven, such a good guy. I don't think you could not love Jordan, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was probably, I guess, Gemma, Joe, and Lee all together, because they're the magazine team. So Gemma is our editor for the magazine. Also fantastic. She seems to know absolutely everyone.
She does.
So she's brought so many fantastic people on board with the mag. Another voice crack there, but we'll ignore it. But so many fantastic people. So she's been great. And then Joe, our photographer, again, just really, really amazing. Like, has done so much. And Lee, our magazine designer. Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but they're all fantastic. You know, so proud of everyone. And more recently yourself. Alex has taken charge of the podcast and lots of other new ideas. So this wouldn't have happened without him.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
so it's great, man. And then loads of other people have helped, like Owen, Joe, like so many friends of ours have stepped in.
Like I say, it's just once you start these things, the web just starts to spread out, doesn't it?
100%. We also had, sorry, I don't want to miss anyone out. We also had John Hawkins, a good friend of mine for a while as well, managing submissions, doing an amazing job there.
I mean, John, to me personally, has just been such a great, since we had that shoot earlier last year, was it? Yeah, it was last year. I was tapping him up for so much like philosophy goodness.
Oh man, he's
just because it's an area that
world.
like I've wanted to step into for so long, and like and you know, I've always felt sort of intellectually inept in that department, just like, you know, not very well read at all. Although everything I've ever read, you know, a friend of mine when I was young lent me Marcus Aurelius's
Meditation.
Yeah. That was my introduction to philosophy
Right.
and thinking in that way, and I just I was hooked really.
Yeah,
from
it's
that day on.
interesting, man. It's so interesting. I feel intellectually inept every single time I speak with John.
Yeah.
He's so smart.
Yeah, he's just brilliant. What's remind me of his? He's got his own page on Medium, hasn't he?
It's called The Appear On. It's a philosophy blog.
That's it.
Targeted towards students in particular, but it's basically his aim is to make philosophy more accessible.
Yeah.
And he does a fantastic job of that. So definitely,
He certainly
check that
does,
out.
man. Yeah, like he sent me this link to sort of five introductory, articles on philosophy and philosophers that would kind of give you a nice, easy. Because some of it can be deep,
That's
can't
it,
it?
man.
You
It's
can
a
step
heavy
off the
subject.
cliff and you'll be like,
Yeah, what's
mind
going
blown.
on? Yeah,
like,
is this falling down?
maybe you can just give it a little lift.
Yeah.
It won't matter. Got it.
Yeah.
Sweet. You can tweak that little clip on the right hand side
Here.
up
That
here.
one?
That's it.
That one there?
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sweet.
So,
So with the title Mind Cafe, the big question that I think a lot of people really want to know is, are you a coffee drinker?
of course, I'm a coffee drinker.
And what's your go-to cup of coffee?
I love an oat milk flat white, but I'm one of those people that gets oat milk and then will still.
So London. He's only been here 5 minutes. Now
But
he's into oat
I'm not
milk.
vegan. Like I still drink milk and eat cheese, but for some reason I feel better about myself when I order oat milk. Just
True.
tastes quite good as well. So
It is good in coffee. I've got a lot of friends back over in Bristol that are just obsessed with like Oatly and everything.
yeah,
And the one thing I just can't agree on, I'm sorry for all you people out there that are big oat drinkers, is tea. Because I'm a big tea drinker. Like
okay.
I love coffee first thing, but then I switch to tea like
Tea,
most of the
yeah.
afternoon. And I just don't know what it is about oat milk in tea, but it just, for me.
I get what you mean.
We have a quick intermission because we're rudely interrupted by
Mic stand.
these mic stands.
But tea and oat
Yeah,
and oat
tea,
milk.
Oatly. What was you saying?
I don't know. I'm not really a big tea drinker these days. Like I used to drink it a lot. I used to hate tea. And then I made my first cup of tea when I was like 14. And I tried to convince myself that I liked it, but I actually made like a tea with loads of milk, filled it with like hot chocolate powder, sugar, everything. And I'm like, yeah, I actually quite like tea, Mum. It's like, no, I didn't. And then I drank it loads for ages, and now it's just coffees really throughout the day. But Oatly and tea, I have to say I'm all right with Oatly and tea.
Oh, yeah.
But I respect your opinion.
Thank you. It's very mindful of you.
What's your go-to coffee?
I've slowly like...
Can I guess?
Go on.
I reckon you're a black Americano.
You knew that already, didn't you?
I did. I just made you one.
Yeah, you did.
One sugar by any chance?
One sugar
Oh my
first
God.
thing, and then
How
I
did
just
I know
like to go hardcore in, just straight black then.
Just inject caffeine into your
Yeah,
veins.
yeah. It was a slow process to get to this point. It was,
A slow decline.
yeah. You know, it's like every drug, isn't it? You start off with just the
It is, to
one
be
sip,
fair.
the one puff. Next thing, boom, you're in, mainlining it in.
That's the thing. We don't really see caffeine like a drug, but it does happen like that.
Definitely is.
Mm.
Like this morning, I got the tube over from North London down to you. It took about 50 minutes ish on the Northern Line, and I got up a bit late, so I just kind of got together and got out the door
Yeah.
without a coffee, and I definitely noticed that I was like just a little bit too aggy for that time of
Yeah,
day, just
yeah.
on the tube as well.
Brain
just coming over,
fog.
just like
I get it, man.
it's
I
not
get
even
it.
busy at the moment. Lockdown's still on. Like, you know, I had no
Yeah.
reason to really be a little bit aggy, but I think it was just the
Caffeine withdrawals, mate.
yeah, definitely.
I get it, man.
You
I
know.
get it.
So yeah, I mean, so we're heading into the third edition now, aren't we?
Mm.
So you did edition 1, which was titled
Clarity.
Clarity.
Mm.
People can still find that now, can't they? through-
Yeah. We've got a load of back stock, so we're still shipping
So there's
those.
still some on the first edition, and then
Yeah.
second edition was
Habits.
Habits.
Yeah.
and so now we're pushing forward into.
Edition 3, which is
Edition
called
3.
Balance. Mm.
So you can tell us a little bit more about the plans for that,
Yeah.
because I know lockdown's kind of had a bit of a weird
it's
curveball.
been a spanner in the works, 100%. The plans are big. Like the magazine's being taken to a different kind of level, which is great. I've said that so many times. In every Instagram post, it's like, this magazine's going to be next level. So forgive me for saying it again. But so the next one, Balance, is same kind of length. You know, everything else is pretty similar, but the caliber of writers is a lot better. Well, when I say caliber, everyone's been a fantastic writer so far, but more the reach and the, I guess, like, reputation of the writers is different in the sense that we've got people like Patty Walters, who's very big in the US, Big Zoo as well, who is big in England. So lots of really interesting people there. There's so many others as well. I won't list them all because every single person is incredible.
It's interesting, actually. I had a quick chat with Jem last week, and she was saying in the lead up to the Big Zoo interview, that his management was saying that, like, you know, it's amazing that you have a publication like this, because usually as a musician, which I can relate to, obviously not on the same level, but you know, just when you do the whole PR process of sort of rolling, you've got a new tune, or you've got something new to push out, and you go through the usual press campaign, you tend to always put on this sort of facade of not really showing your true self, not really being that, again, transparent with how you really feel about your own mental health and things like that. And Jem was saying, like, his management was really impressed with, it was one of the few places where he felt like he could actually speak more about his own experiences rather than just like pushing a product, pushing the music. Oh, here's a new song, go listen to it.
That's
that
the
you
thing.
could delve a bit deeper.
Keep saying as well, and it's interesting that we've gone down the sort of music path. Like, a lot of the people in the mag are musicians and singers, and you know, lots of other professions as well. But yeah, exactly that. I think it's great for artists to, like you said, there's a lot of expression in music for sure, but there are also a lot of constraints, as you know.
Yeah.
Like, you're bound by verses and choruses and every sentence rhyming.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I guess, a little bit difficult to convey exactly what you want to convey. Whereas I think a lot of the artists we're working with are appreciative of having this new platform, or like canvas on which to paint their story, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, they're able to share these things that they can't necessarily share in a song. And I think as well, most people are pretty passionate about mental health and the importance of self-improvement, especially in today's world. And so people having a platform, like I said, on which to share those messages is great. You know, I think even people like, you know, Big Zoo, who, you know, is a grime artist, like, on the surface, perhaps you wouldn't think that self-improvement is something close to his heart. But when we spoke with him in our interview, he had so many little pearls of wisdom that were so useful. And outside of that setting, he probably wouldn't publicly share that same story. And so it is good, man. It's good that, it's good that it's mutually beneficial as well. That we can help them, you know, they help us an awful lot. And the fact that we can provide them that opportunity is, again, special for us. So
huge.
I think you're right.
So is that interview going to be in edition 3 coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, we've got some interesting ones, man. We've got that.
That's really cool.
Got an interview with a friend of mine called Brian Penny, who's very, very talented speaker, author, you know, loads of different things to his name, but he was a heroin addict for 15 years.
Wow.
And his story is crazy, man, like, so interesting.
He sounds like a good podcast edition.
100%. He's a talkative guy as well.
I'll have to get him in.
Yeah, he's an Irish guy, so my family are Irish as well. They love a chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an incredible story that's in there. It's just like...
What's the title again for the 3rd edition?
Balance. So it all ties back to this concept of how we can find balance and, well, obviously balance, but, you know, sort of... Well, yeah, I can't think of another word.
It's a very broad term, isn't it? But I guess you can relate it to... Because I had a quick look over the brief Jem sent me for what was coming, and, like, there's features in there about experiences from people that suffer with sort of ADHD and OCD and that kind of thing, and, like, how they find balance suffering with, difficulties like that.
Which is great. And I
it
think
is
there's
great.
something for everyone in there.
It is, yeah. Because it's one of those things, it's like kind of like out of sight, out of mind, I find, with certain, you know, unless you've been directly affected by something, or you've happened to see something, you kind of are a bit blind to what's going on in people's minds naturally, you know.
100%. And to prove that point at the shoot, I don't think you were there for this shoot that we did in London a few weeks ago, but Georgia, who is one of our writers, has OCD. And on the surface, you wouldn't think it. I was surprised when she said so. And I was surprised because I have this preconceived idea of what OCD is. And our photographer, Joe, also had a preconceived idea. So he was like trying to frame her for the shot, and he was like, maybe we could get you like organising some books or something like for the OCD. And she was like, no, that's not what OCD is. Like, shut it. And then she's a lovely girl. She wasn't that angry, but funny. Like, she was like, everyone thinks that. And so I think you're right. We do all have this idea of OCD is da-da-da-da, ADHD is da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And these stories show that it's far more than that.
Yeah, like every mental condition, I suppose, you know, they're so nuanced. You can't just put a broad term over something and say, oh, you know, because everyone jokes. I mean, even I used to joke about OCD until I had a really close encounter with it. Back when I was in America last year, a really good friend of mine, who I didn't realise at the time, suffered with it, and it was only through being in his presence over a long period of time, sort of sharing living space, that you realise just how crippling at points it was for him, you know.
100%.
And it was obviously brought on by more anxious things, and he was going through a breakup at the time and stuff, and it was, you know, really flared up for him, and it was the first time I'd ever actually witnessed it firsthand, and it was just, I felt so sorry for him because, you know, he's such a sane, on the level person, incredible musician, working in so many projects, but it was just crippling for him. And he'd even talk about it himself, be like, yeah, you know, I know it's crazy, but, you know, I have to do this particular thing, have to wash a certain way for a certain amount of time, and like, you know, and then for the first time I really realised just the variety of something like OCD and like the 100%. Different levels of that. And
it's like we said earlier, that within those painful experiences are quite a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Georgia in particular was sharing those lessons, you know, in the same way, like, yeah, it must be horrible and a very difficult experience, but then within that you discover these new things about life and yourself that you wouldn't otherwise without that adversity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think creating a space where people can speak about things openly without sort of being judged is only going to enhance people's understanding, but also people's recovery that are going through those experiences.
100%.
So, you know, I think it's a great thing that we're living in a world where people are feeling like they're able to talk about things, particularly mental things, and, you know, from a male perspective as well, I know there is still a huge stigma around that, and I'm even guilty of that, and I'm sure you are too. Like, too. You know, there's things where, you know, I come from a pretty conventional upbringing, you know, a really lovely upbringing, thankfully. So personally, when I think about my own mental health and stuff, I don't genuinely feel like I've suffered that much, because I've got loving parents, and I've come from a nice, loving home. So to me, I feel, so for a long time, like I was pretty ignorant to people's mental issues.
Of course, yeah.
Just because I went to a pretty normal comprehensive school where, especially boys, just don't talk about their feelings ever, or even want to be seen to be like tearful, or
especially when we were younger as well. Like, it's probably quite different now for younger people growing up. I think we are much more tolerant and accepting, but 100%, like, you know, man up, grow a pair.
Yeah.
They were common playground phrases, you know.
And there's still a time and a place for some of those phrases sometimes in jest, like. But when someone's trying to really open up, like, I'm glad we're developing a space where people genuinely feel like they can now, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I still tell my friends to man up when they're really hungover and complaining. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
But I don't mean it.
Exactly. But yeah, man, it's been lovely to find out a little bit more about what Mind Cafe stands for. I think it's a really exciting time for the publication and for the world in general. I mean, we're coming out of this weird lockdown phase now, I hope. I think everyone's holding that hope dearly, aren't they, after the announcement?
June, yeah.
So by summertime, you know, hopefully we'll all be sat in the park, reading a copy of Mind Cafe, swigging on a Camden lager.
Flat white.
Other lagers are available. It's just my go-to.
Camden. Is it Camden Hells?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I am a bit of a sucker for that.
Familiar.
The pale one, you know, the blue.
Yeah, is it an IPA?
IPA, yeah.
I do love an IPA, you know. Yeah.
I mean, I know I look like the demographic that drinks IPAs.
Shoreditch.
I am guilty of that.
You'd fit in well in Shoreditch, man. It's cool that I like it.
But yeah, it's been lovely to sit down and sort of do this. I know it's been something we've wanted to do for quite a while, and
yeah, definitely.
I'm hoping we can continue these and going forward. But is there anything else that you might want to mention?
Well, I guess on that note, I think I'd love for this podcast to be shaped by the listeners. So if people if people want to hear more of this, just me and you having a chat, then great, we can do it all
Yeah,
day
yeah.
long.
All day.
But if people would like to hear us talk about specific subjects or have different guests on board, like I'd love to know actually what our listeners and followers and readers want.
Yeah,
So I guess just if anyone has any ideas, anything they prefer to listen to, then send it in.
absolutely.
Just I wanted to kind of grow and evolve with what people want to hear. So
Absolutely, yeah. So you heard that first from our founder.
I found
Our founder.
master.
Yeah, man. If so, anyone that's listening out there for this debut podcast, if you have any suggestions on what we should talk about, who we should include, we're an open book, really. You know, this is our first one. We're excited that we're doing this. Roll on summertime. Roll on post lockdown.
Yep.
Bring on the Renaissance.
Bring on the Renaissance. Yeah.
The booming 20s, man. We're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's it, man. I think we're good.
Well, my microphone's about to fall over, so before it does, let's wrap it up. But thanks for listening,
All right,
guys.
man. Yeah.
And thanks to you, Alex, as well.
Thank you, man. We'll speak soon.